Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of Assembly Natural Resources to order. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Urick. Chair Cohen.
And I am present. Once again, thank you to everyone who is joining us. We're going to do some housekeeping first. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign at the table by the door and provide a business card to the community secretary. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record. Then turn the microphone off each time you're done speaking. As for handouts, please provide 15 hard copies for members of the public. Electronic copies should have been submitted to our committee manager by 12 o'clock on Friday, so the previous business day for members of the committee. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Please note, committee members may be using laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please don't view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. We are going to go out of order, so we do have a BDR introduction. We will do the BDR. We will then have a quick presentation. Then we will do Assembly Bill 131 and Assembly Bill 71. As for testimony for the bills, testimony in support, opposition, and neutral will be 30 minutes each. People will be timed. It will be 2 minutes. We do have some people who will be using a translator. If you're using a translator, we'll give a few seconds extra to try to make it as fair as possible. But just remember, if you use more time than you're allotted, you are taking time from other people who would also like to testify. So with that, we are going to move to the the BDR introduction. It's BDR 18470. I will entertain a motion to introduce BDR number 18470.
So moved.
I have a motion from, was that Assemblymember DeLong? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from the vice chair. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, nay. Okay, seeing none, that passes unanimously. And with that, we will move on to our presentation on Nevada Shared Stewardship and Forest Service Wildfire Crisis Strategy by Mary Farnsworth, the Intermountain Regional Forester with the USDA Forest Service, Casey, our State Forester Fire Warden from the Nevada Division of Forestry, and Bill Dunkelberger, the Forest Supervisor of the Humboldt-Toyobe National Forest. Thank you so much for joining us. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mary Farnsworth, and I'm the Intermountain Regional Forester for the U.S. Forest Service. I'd like to do a quick overview. I am joined by State Forester Casey and Bill Dunkelberger, who is our Forest Supervisor of the Humboldt-Toyobe National Forest. I would like to do a quick kind of overview of the Forest Service for folks. Forest Service manages and protects about 154 national forests, 20 grasslands in 44 states, and Puerto Rico. We have a pretty big job to do there. I am responsible as a regional forester for 12 national forests in 6 states, and I'm joining you here today to talk about Nevada and the Humboldt-Toyobe National Forest and the wonderful partnerships that we have. We're a multiple-use agency, and so we have a lot of responsibilities. And Bill, as the forest supervisor here on the Humboldt-Toyobe, he manages an area that covers about 6 million acres. So that's a lot of ground and a lot of issues to address, a lot of multiple-use things going on. And very specifically, I want to talk a little bit about shared stewardship, and I want to talk a little bit about the wildfire crisis. The Humboldt-Toyabe is the largest national forest in the lower 48 states. It is very large at that 6 million acres, a little more than 6 million acres. It also has a little bit of California, about 1 million acres, that Bill manages on his landscape. So it's a big job, and I just wanted to give that overview before I pass it to Casey. Casey to talk a little bit about shared stewardship and our wonderful partnership.
Thank you. For the record, Casey, State Forester Fire Warden. You guys just heard from me on shared stewardship, so I'm not going to say everything again, but I do just want to reiterate a couple things. The Forest Service and the state forestry agencies have worked together for over 100 years. When the Forest Service was created, we worked together to manage all the forests in the United States and the islands. So the shared stewardship agreement, when the concept came out, we were the first state in all of the 50 states to come up with an agreement that was bigger than just the U.S. Forest Service and the state forestry agencies, because we recognized that we needed to include all of our federal partners, all our state partners, other local government partners, tribes. So we had a more inclusive shared stewardship agreement for how we were going to address the growing wildfire concerns in the state of Nevada. The purpose of the exercise was really to direct our staffs, the staffs that we all had with all of the equipment that we had, to co-manage this risk together. We needed to prioritize the areas in the state in which the risk was the highest, and we needed to focus our funding, our limited funding, and our limited resources in those areas. So the map you have seen before, those are the 13 identified highest priority landscapes across Nevada, agreed upon by all of the agencies who were a part of that. And I want to say that there were some deliverables that were put into the agreement, the creation of an executive committee that has been created and has been operating since the beginning of the agreement. We were to increase our annual acres treated by 50% by the year 2025. We haven't hit that number yet, but we're at 48% average increase each year since the creation of this program, and that was without additional funding. That was our staff just working together to really make this effort go. And so today we're going to announce the exciting new money that will hopefully push us over a 50% increase. We did create a strategic plan. We were working on that anyway through the cohesive strategy, so we had created a strategic plan. What we are working on right now at the local level is 5-year programs of work. So making sure that our staff at each of these local areas are saying, here's the highest priority areas and here's how we're going to implement at the ground level. And with that, I will hand it back to Mary.
Fabulous. So the shared stewardship situation we have here in Nevada has set us up extremely well for this moment. I'd like to talk a little bit about fire. The Forest Service, as an agency, has developed a wildfire crisis strategy to address fire as the emergency it is, not just when the fires are burning, but before, so we could get in front of it. So that includes doing some modeling, some best available science at this time around mapping. And those mapped areas really show us where the greatest amount of risk is to communities, the risk of fire reaching a community and or infrastructure. So those mapped fire sheds, as we call them, tie directly in with the map around shared stewardship. They are the same. It's not a big mystery why they're the same. We know these places as fire agencies, both states, partners, Forest Service. But these fire sheds are very important because it has allowed us to focus on the right places in priority to get the work done. In the past, we've really done a lot of work all over the place, and that has not necessarily served us well. It's been great work, but we really need to treat the right places at the right scale to really make a difference on the landscape. So I would like to talk a little bit about the happy place we find ourselves right now, and that is that the 10-year wildfire crisis strategy really addresses the places where fire is of immediate risk to communities. The Forest Service has done the planning, and certainly with the state foresters' help, we have, and our partners, identified those areas. Congress has given us now the funds to do the work. and happy to report that the agency is investing $57 million across 2 landscapes in Nevada. $57 million is quite a substantial amount of funds. Bill's normal fuels budget is about $2.5 million. So we are exponentially working on addressing the emergency that we have around fire right now in the right places at the right scale. So it's quite amazing that the work with shared stewardship, help of the state forester, has gotten us to the place where Nevada is seen as a wise investment for getting this work done to protect and reduce the risk to communities. So we hope to treat at $57 million is for 2023. There's more investment next year and the year after. And over the course of the next 7 to 10 years, we hope to treat about 200,000 acres across these landscapes. That is a big, very big investment in the right places, and so we're pretty buzzed up about that. All the money's not going to Forest Service employees. A lot of the work is going to be done by our partners, working very closely with partners that can add capacity and get the work done for us, as well as contracts. And so this is also about jobs in those places where we're doing these treatments. So it's quite exciting. And so wanted to give you this report about our investment here in Nevada on the Sierra Front and in Elko, around the Elko Front. Those are the 2 areas that were deemed by the Shared Stewardship Partnership to be of most risk of catastrophic fire, and so we're going to do something about it. And so willing to entertain any questions if we're able to. Bill, as the forest supervisor, can probably answer any nitty-gritty questions you have, but we're pretty excited about the work we get to do over the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question from Assemblywoman Brown May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for being here and for giving us this presentation. The collaboration that you are exhibiting throughout Nevada is really exemplary, and we appreciate that. My question is really relative to, you talked about right now, right places. And so what's the criteria? How do you determine what the right place is to start when you're assessing where to start the work first?
Bill Dunkelberger for the record. Yeah, that's a great question. And in the process of Nevada shared stewardship, what we did is we actually, like Casey mentioned, it's not only the Forest Service and the State Forest Agency. We've got the BLM, we've got NRCS, we've got the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Department of Wildlife, and Department of Agriculture, all working together. And so we actually have a technical advisory team. They actually, looked at a whole bunch of layers, one, for example, being critical wildlife habitat, one being critical infrastructure, critical watersheds for drinking water for communities. We layered all those layers on top of each other. That's how we came up with those 13 priority landscapes. And then ironically, or not ironically, but coincidentally, the Forest Service did the same thing, modeling for fire risk, and came up with, identified 7 major fire sheds in the Elko and in the Sierra Front areas that kind of overlap with, the priorities that we had already picked. So to me, it shows that our science was good, and it, validated it. And that's really how we, decided where we're gonna do the work.
Thank you for that. It's great to know that much of the work was first comprehensive, but then layered on top of each other. You're seeing the same analysis give you the same results. So that's really great to know. I'm just curious to know then, do we have enough people to do the work that's in front of us? How do we staff that out?
Great question. So it's a bit of a struggle right now. Everybody understands the hiring arena that we're in is very challenging. I think the answer to your question is it's going to take all of us to do this work. It's going to take private industry. It's going to take partners. It's going to take Forest Service employees to administer contracts. It's going to take tribal entities who can do the work, and we have several of those that are just amazing partners. So it's going to take all of us, and we have to diversify who's doing the work, or we won't get it done. It's really important that we all seek economic development opportunities for crews, woods crews, for all kinds of woods work, because we're going to need to build some infrastructure. So no one answer. It's everything to work at this magnitude that is quite different from where we've been in past years.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question or maybe some clarification about the Sierra Front area. Looking at this map, obviously it's kind of small scale. It looks like it comes up into the Tahoe Basin. So have you been coordinating with TRPA? Because they have some very significant restrictions on land use activities. And also wanted to know about the same thing with the Tahoe National Forest.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. Bill Dunkelberger for the record, and it's nice to see you, Mr. DeLong. Been a while. Actually, the Tahoe Basin, most of it is not included. They're actually covered by other high priority fire work. Things like the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act, the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. However, we do go, basically over to the east shore. And so we have been coordinating closely with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, with the TRPA, and also the Tahoe National Forest. We actually abut one of their priority landscapes or wildfire crisis priorities. So we'll actually be looking at doing some work, and that's in the kind of the Bird Eye, Dog Valley area. So we're excited that, we'll be able to kind of edge match all the good work that they're doing on the Tahoe side, with ours.
Thank you, Chair.
Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here and for the work you do. Ms. Farnsworth, you mentioned treatment, and I'm thinking about the areas that you mentioned and have been highlighted, Elko and the Sierras. I'm thinking different landscapes, different habitat. So what do those treatments look like in those zones?
So I'll answer initially and pass it to my friends here. Different landscapes require different treatments. Our forests and grasslands are in various states of forest health. And so there's thinning treatments, there's all kinds of things that happen on these landscapes. And so it is not a uniform treatment, one size fits all. For details, I'll pass it to Casey and Bill.
Thank you. For the record, Casey. I would just add that I think what we're looking at is locally led initiatives. So that was one of the things that we were keen on doing, and one of the reasons these top two landscapes moved up to the top so quickly. We did get our staff together. They have formed these local working groups. There's a lot of terms called local area, so I don't know what we call these ones, but they are local working groups, basically looking at the ground level, where are we NEPA ready on some of the Forest Service or federal lands, and then where are we going to be able to put those treatments adjacent. So those working groups are kind of working through their process, telling us what type of treatments. It's prescribed fire, it's mechanical, it's hand thinning, all kinds of, there's some herbicide application, there's a whole bunch of different stuff that's gonna need to happen. And then where do we take the wood? And then any issues that they face at that local level, they're pushing up to the executive committee, the technical advisory committee, or the executive committee to help figure out how we might help them through the process to get it done quicker. So NEPA always is a hurdle for us, getting the NEPA ready. So we're kind of, these are the areas we can go to right now. We're planning ahead. How do we get contractors? The state has contracted NEPA services. The federal government has contracted NEPA services. So we're all kind of looking at how can we collectively work as quickly as possible to implement multiple treatments on the landscape.
Bill Dunkelberg for the record. I would just add, it really depends on the vegetation condition, like Mary said, and then also, proximity to communities. I mean, obviously, we would like to be able to do a lot of prescribed burning, which is very effective if you do it at the right time of the year. However, we're not going to be lighting big prescribed fires right next to, suburbs. So in those areas, we choose probably, hand thinning and then piling and then burning selectively during the winter when there's snow on the ground, or maybe just what we call mastication, which is, running a large chipping type machine through the vegetation and basically mulching it. So it really depends.
Committee, do we have any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, I will turn over the gavel to the vice chair. Do you want to stay there?
So I believe we will be, I will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 131, which revises provisions governing urban and community forestry. And I believe Assemblywoman Chair Cohen and Mrs. Ortega will be presenting. So whenever you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Presenting with me today is Lisa Ortega. Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Lisa Ortega is the only female International Society Arboriculture Registered Master Arborist in the state of Nevada, and an American Society of Consulting Arborist Registered Consulting Arborist. Ms. Ortega has worked in urban forestry in Nevada for over 25 years and has worked for both the state of Nevada and the city of Henderson as their first urban foresters. She owns her own business, Arid Lands Horticulture Consulting, and in 2021 created Nevada Plants, a tree planting nonprofit focused on trees and tree education. Ms. Ortega and I have been friends on social media for a few years, and so I knew basically in the abstract that she had been doing really good work in our communities with trees. And so last summer, when she posted something on social media about wanting to see some legislation regarding urban and community forestry, I messaged her asking about what would that entail. And so after many meetings and research, with us both saying, what is that? We are here happy to present Assembly Bill 131. And so I referred to this bill as the happy little bill for happy little trees. And this bill is happy. However, the issues this bill addresses are very serious. We're talking about heat islands, poor air quality, poor soil health, and food insecurity. And all these are very harmful to Nevada families. And so as you'll hear today, AB 131 helps solve these problems, and it makes our communities healthier for our families.
Turn mine on too. Thank you, Vice Chair Anderson and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Lisa Ortega, and I am here with Assemblywoman Cohen to present for your consideration Assembly Bill 131, which revises provisions governing urban and community forestry. Trees reduce the urban heat island, food deserts, hot playgrounds, hot streets, and hot tempers. Trees are some of the most prominent natural features in towns and cities from both visual and functional perspectives. The urban forest is a key type of the green infrastructure system in our cities and our towns. Urban forests are critical to mental and physical health. Access to trees can help reduce individual stress, improve mental health, strengthen immune systems, reduce crime, improve student academic performance. Exposure to urban forests reduces mental and physical stress, anxiety, depression, and improves moods. Trees build people's capacities by strengthening the immune system by motivating active living. They clean our air. It's a great thing. They mitigate air pollution and clean our air by holding particulates and sequestering carbon. Nevada residents living in high pollution areas experience more hospitalization. Effects of chronic air pollution exposure have higher instances of pregnancy complications for both the mother and the child. Pollution creates more memory loss in older people and a higher instance of Parkinson's disease and diabetes. Urban forests slow climate change. Cooling services are provided by trees, their shade, and their evapotranspiration. Trees remove climate warming greenhouse gases from the air. Tree canopies provide a measure of protection against harmful UV rays. And that picture is Clark County, and of course in the bright red and the orange is the hottest of the urban heat island, moving from the yellow to the green. And that's what it looks like close up. Urban forests remediate urban heat island. They're over 10 degrees hotter, and I just watched a video from the SNWA, and they showed 17 degrees. So I like 17 degrees. It's a heck of a difference. Heat island effects fall disproportionately on people in lower income neighborhoods and people of color. Expressly. High heat health impacts, heat-related fainting, heat exhaustion, fatal heat stroke. This is happening more and more. It affects the very old, the very young, pregnant women, outdoor workers, athletes, and people with other health conditions such as diabetes struggle in the excessive heat. Oh, that's a piece in East Las Vegas. Urban forests are more robust in Nevada in wealthier community areas across the state. There's urban heat inequity looking at Reno. When you look at Las Vegas, it's the same. Higher income, more trees. Urban forestry should also consider underserved communities, northeastern Nevada, tribes, others that maybe currently aren't being considered or served. Urban forests improve communities for families, our families, and our children. School greening, bus stops, high-use pedestrian routes. Tribes need shade. Small communities need trees for shade. Tourism, our riparian corridors, our river parkways, such as the one in Reno, parks, trails, shading, and reduction of energy bills for our folks. We need urban and community forestry. We are losing more trees in the Las Vegas Valley than we're planting, by far. We are experiencing more drought. Planting trees reduces energy use for residents. Planting trees remediates air pollution, urban heat islands, and food deserts. Trees reduce stormwater runoff. They hold the soil and could contribute to wildlife. And urban forests increase physical and mental health. Some of the urban forestry considerations: appropriate canopy targets. What are the energy savings when we plant on the south and west side? What is the water use? And what are the best forestry practices? Thank you. Sorry. So the bill summary, Assembly Bill 131 offers as a solution. The first few sections of the bill provide some definitions, including the definitions for urban and community forests and urban and community forestry, which to summarize is the science of developing and caring for trees in an urban environment to enhance air and water quality, provide shade, stabilize soil, reduce noise levels, and other benefits, as we've discussed. Section 6 creates the Urban and Community Forestry Program within the Nevada Division of Forestry. This program will promote, create, improve, maintain urban and community forests, help with technical assistance, provide various improvements. In order to do this, the State Forest or Fire Warden is required to develop targets for urban tree canopies with a focus on developing targets in historically underserved communities and areas vulnerable to heat islands. Cooperate with forestry organizations and government agencies to advance and promote urban forests and develop best practices for maintaining the health of urban forests. Section 7 requires the division to provide technical assistance to state and local governments on urban forests relating to planning and land use, training programs, urban forest health, and other matters. Section 8 authorizes the state forester fire warden to establish a program to distribute grants that will support urban forestry, which includes grants to promote community involvement with planning and planting urban forests, developing educational materials, grants for maintenance programs and for other related projects, and requires the state forester fire warden to adopt regulations to carry out the grant program. Section 9 allows the state forester fire warden to enter into cooperative agreements to apply for and accept gifts, grants, services, and donations in furtherance of the urban and community forestry program, and to adopt regulations to carry out this act. Lastly, Section 10 provides that the bill is effective upon passage for purposes of performing preparatory administrative tasks and to adopt any regulations, and on January 1st, 2024, and other purposes. In conclusion, I thank you for considering AB 131. The many benefits of urban forests on everything from mitigating the detrimental impacts of urban heat islands and improving our air quality to the positive contributions that urban forests can make on mental health and on creating opportunities for social interaction, show that by creating green infrastructures in our communities, we can improve the lives of Nevadans all across the state. I urge you to support the bill. Thank you, and I'm happy to address any questions that you have.
Wonderful, thank you so much, and I know we've got a few questions. So Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this. I agree with you that I think trees have all of these benefits. I recently presented a soil health presentation, and I know that our trees and our healthy soils go hand in hand, and so I do appreciate this. My question stems from something that was written on the fiscal note, and I know we're not considering the fiscal note in this policy committee, but it said in the note, NDF has the ability and currently does meet the obligations set forth in this statutory change under existing authorities. And so I wondered if you could just speak to this. It sounds like they are already doing the things that are laid out in the bill, and so if you could just speak to why this program is necessary beyond what they are already doing.
Lisa Ortega, for the record, sorry,
Please go directly to the member that asked the
Okay.
question.
Assemblywoman Hatch. They do. I think that it really is a much broader piece. I think that the urban heat island maps are new. I don't think there has been any work done in those areas for that reason. Not to mention that as of last year, the U.S. Forest Service did not allow planting on private property. And we've been working with Washington, D.C. to try to make that happen for equity. And equity and those kind of things, these things have never been talked about until this last year. And so I think that codifying them is good. I think that supporting them is good. And they do a great job, I'll say. And yes, they do have an urban forestry program. Yes.
I swear the buttons in this room. Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. We did communicate with our forester fire warden before bringing the bill, and what we see here is an enhancement. So definitely there is a program and there is some federal things going on as well, but we do believe that this is necessary for enhancement.
Thank you. Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Vice Chair. How does this program interrelate with the county and city parks and recs departments that are responsible for maintaining urban green spaces?
Lisa Ortega, for the record, thank you for the question, Assemblyman DeLong. I think it just marries with them. We have a 2050 master plan from the city of Las Vegas that is already calling for 100 or 60,000 trees. We have Impact NV is also a new nonprofit who's looking at 100,000 with Henderson, Las Vegas, and Reno. Reno just started Reno Relief Program, and so they are active also in tree planting. And they also have urban heat islands, and they also have equity issues in the urban heat island, or in the urban forest in the communities. And they're all working on it. And the great thing is we have been able to all get together and say, what are we all working on, and how can we best work together so that we're not just fragmented, working all over the place, that we have a dedicated way that we're going to work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Considine.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this presentation. Assembly District 18, the district I represent, is on the east side. There are a lot of heat islands. One of the things that I see is folks in older neighborhoods have taken out all the grass and all they've done is rocks. Is there a component to this education-wise about how you can have trees and rocks? It's not, it's a way to help cool your house. It's a way to cut down on air conditioning and all of that. Education-wise, because for probably, I think, like a decade, the idea was just rip everything out of your yard and put in an extreme desert landscaping, and how this will work to help some of those neighborhood heat islands.
Lisa Ortega, for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman Cohn. You know, there's something to be said about being on the east side in Las Vegas and having a south face window with no shade. There's something to be said about that. And that is, like, I went and dropped this tree died, so I went to replace it. No big deal. It's just another tree. Until you see the 8-month-old, right, in the crib that has to be right against that south wall in a very small home. And they have to run the air conditioning all the time just for that south face window. South face windows, west face windows. We're finding that the bills for AC are increasing as we remove the transpiration ability of turf grass and also just denuding the landscape. And I think SNWA is working very hard. They're working on some videos in collaboration of how to preserve mature trees during a turf grass conversion so that we can try to hang on to as many of the mature trees as we can while we reduce water.
Committee, any other questions? Please, Assemblymember Hanson.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and my apologies, I sent my question to Chair Cohen. Sorry about that. I had a quick question. Chair Cohen, you mentioned enhancements. This bill would be an enhancement. Could you maybe list, I mean, I've read the bill, but just kind of spotlight, what are those enhancements per se?
Leslie Cohen, Assembly District 29. Well, I certainly don't want to say that I'm an expert on what the program is that exists, but in speaking with the Forester Fire Warden, I know that there is an existing program, and we did feel that this was, everything that's in here, we feel like we're adding to what they already have. Do you want to, the Forester Fire Warden is here to testify neutral, so I think she's willing to take some questions about what we've already got, but it's, or do you want to also add anything?
Lisa Ortega, thanks for the question, Assemblywoman Hanson. It really just gets more specific to me in that in the past, you know, we might have planted a tree at a school, and that's great. But now we're calling for school greening, and it's kind of different out there that we're asking for shade. Food deserts also, there was kind of, we didn't even know they existed until the USDA put out a map just over a year ago. So we weren't working on remediating urban heat island and food deserts, and we didn't know any of those things until just recently. And so we're asking them to work on the technical pieces, those maps that we know exist that didn't exist in the past.
And last call for questions. Seeing none, thank you. And we will now hear testimony on AB 131. Just as a reminder, testimony and support means you support the bill in its entirety. Opposition is if you oppose anything in the bill, even if it's just one small thing, but you love the rest. And neutral is not taking a position. It is just providing us with information. Please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. And the plan is that we'll take 30 minutes in favor, 30 minutes, or in support, 30 minutes in opposition, and 30 minutes in neutral if necessary. Please fill up the seats and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Anderson, and respective committee members. My name is Candace Townsend, and I represent the City of North Las Vegas. We are here today in support of AB 131, and we look forward to partnering with the Urban and Community Forestry Program on helping providing more green spaces for residents of the City of North Las Vegas. We thank you for bringing this forward. It is an important initiative, and we are happy to support it. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Kathy Flanagan, Flanagan, representing the Southern Nevada Water Authority. As was touched on in the questions, the SNWA's Water Smart Landscape Rebate Program provides a $3 per square foot rebate for turf conversions. This program also has a requirement that at least 50% of the converted area have trees, shrubs, and plants. Since 1999, this program has saved 152 billion gallons of water. So you hear the SNWA call for conservation, but trees are not the problem. The SNWA likes trees, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matijevich, Cadencematijevich, representing Washoe County. And I am happy to be here in support of this bill today. We love trees in Washoe County. For all of the reasons that you've heard of all of the benefits that trees provide to our communities and to Nevadans. If I may, I heard a couple of questions that talk about what does this do for local governments and what does it do for parks and recreation departments. And for us, we see a couple of things. Section 7 of the bill provides for technical assistance to local governments. We think that that's important. When we're working together and we can share that information, that helps the trees in our community. Section 8, grants. We'd all like to think that money grows on trees. Well, maybe we can grow some money for some trees with this bill. Section 9 similarly authorizes entering into cooperative agreements on behalf of the state and political subdivisions. And so we think that there's potentially some efficiencies and economies of scale that could be gained from that. And so for all of those reasons, we are in support of this bill. Thank you.
And just a reminder also, if somebody says something that you agree with, you can always say ditto. There's nothing wrong with that. But please.
Thank you, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Anderson, and members of the Natural Resource Committee. For the record, I'm Haley Elmore, HaileyElmore, and I'm here to testify in support of AB 131. I live on the east side of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm 15 and attend Chaparral High School. The back gate to our school is less than 200 feet from the Interstate I-95. Having the interstate so close and a lack of trees, we have a higher amount of pollution in our school area. On the other side of the interstate and surrounding the high school is all residential area, or mostly residential area. Children who grow up in areas with high pollution have more chances of developing asthma and have reduced lung functions as adults. A study in Britain showed a connection between growing up in a neighborhood with high pollution and intellectual disability. One in Chile shows that high school students scored worse on tests on days with high levels of pollution, and one in New York connected pollutants with attention and learning difficulties. This is why I support and hope that you will support the Assembly Bill 131. This bill is for the trees we plant that will create a better community for our future generations. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Annette Magnus, and I'm the Executive Director of Battleborn Progress. We are in strong support of AB 131. I am often called a tree hugger, and I will totally lean in on that for this bill. Not only would urban forestry mitigate the urban island heat effect, which is something happening across the state and disproportionately affecting low-income communities, but it would also beautify our neighborhoods and enable us to plant desert-resilient trees that are less water-intensive. For asthmatics like me, this bill is critical. This is a fantastic opportunity to create green spaces across our communities that desperately need them. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Peter Gower, Gower. I'm the Energy and Land Use Strategy Director with the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. The Nature Conservancy supports AB 131 to create an urban and community forestry program within the Division of Forestry. Urban tree canopy has multiple co-benefits, including urban heat mitigation, carbon storage, local air quality enhancement, food desert mitigation, and wildlife habitat. Urban forests are essential for community climate resilience. The proposed bill would strengthen the division's commitment to maintaining and improving urban forests. It would also prioritize tree canopy-related resources in historically underserved communities and areas that are most vulnerable to extreme heat. Recent studies, notably the RTC of Southern Nevada's Extreme Heat Vulnerability Analysis, found that populations in the Las Vegas Valley with the highest exposure to extreme heat are also the most sensitive and least able to adapt to its effects. Expanding the tree canopy in these areas is a critical step towards alleviating the disproportionate burden that these communities are bearing in an era of climate change. As a nonprofit conservation organization working to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends, TNC is partnering with the Division of Forestry to develop a tree canopy strategic planning baseline for the Las Vegas Valley. Last week, we convened over 20 stakeholders to gather information about tree canopy research, plans, studies, and implementation projects. This baseline work will help guide a strategic approach to tree canopy research, planning, and project implementation in Southern Nevada, and address important questions about species types, water use, and ways to maximize the co-benefits. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee. For the record, Steve Walker representing Eureka County. Ditto.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Prince Kunanan Saruhan. That's Prince like the artist. Kunanan, Cunanan. And last name is Saruhan. And I am here representing Faith in Action Nevada and Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. I am a serial community member. I'm a volunteer, but I'm also an immigrant. I originally grew up in the Philippines the first half of my life. And so I'm kind of present in a very biodiverse piece of land. I grew up on the island of Luzon, just outside Metro Manila. And growing up in the 90s, I witnessed what it was like for rapid urbanization, for rapid industrialization, and the only way to do that is to uproot trees, to uproot plants, and to kind of concretize everything. And I didn't really understand what the effects of that were like, except for when I was growing up, childhood asthma was normal. And even though I already lived in a tropical paradise, most kids who had to have childhood asthma because of the great smog that we were living under, that we didn't know that was the cause. Every kid had to kind of go back to the countryside. I mean, we already kind of live in a semi-rural interface, and pretty soon, if we let our cities kind of grow rampant without the trees, without the mitigation of building on floodplains and whatnot, we're going to see things kind of disappear, and before we know it, our urban landscape's going to look nothing like what our kids grew up in. And I'm just going to say this: when I was growing up in the 90s. I used to see fireflies all the time, being very close to water features. But, I've been back to the Philippines 4 times since 2012. And, now I have to pay to see fireflies because those trees have been uprooted and those fireflies only live in a specific specific trees. And It's kind of the same out here, even though we live in a more more austere environment. Grasslands,
might wanna start
floodplains.
wrapping it
But yeah,
up. Thank you.
please support AB 131 like I do and like my organizations do. And thank you so much for hearing me. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thanks, committee people, for the opportunity to advocate for my community. My name's Chris Mendoza, for the record. That's a CHRISMENDOZA. I'm here from Las Vegas in Assembly District 10. And I'm here thanks to the NEJC and local Las Vegas organization Fifth Sun Project to testify in support of AB 131, the movement for urban community foresting. Lots of our choice neighborhoods in Vegas, that is Summerlin, Centennial, Aliante, and other ones, enjoy the benefits of a robustly maintained landscape and foresting, namely the cooler environment and nice shady places to relax. As an active member in the local Las Vegas music community and a working stage and production hand, I can say that many of my peers live in the dustier neighborhoods like downtown, the Arts District, the East Side, and the historic West Side. From the events that I organize and jobs that I work, I often drive many of my friends and peers who lack the privilege of reliable transportation. What for me is a pleasant 15 or 30-minute drive is for many a trying 2 or 3 hour commute waiting in oppressive heat for public transportation with little or no relief areas or shade. With the forests planted and maintained by AB 131, our vulnerable communities would see beautified neighborhoods, increased quality of and potential saving of lives. For those reasons, I implore y'all to support our efforts toward relief in urban community via awesome vegetation. Thank you.
Thank you, and if it's okay, I think I'm going to go on down to Clark County because we do have a few people at the table, and then, but if the next person up here in Carson would like to come on in, but I think we'll start with also the individuals in Clark County, if that is okay.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Joanne Leovy, Leovy. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby and Nevada Clinicians for Climate Action. And as a family physician, I just want to highlight again some of the health and health equity benefits of appropriately sited, planted, and maintained urban trees. The hottest areas in the Las Vegas Valley occur in low-income neighborhoods that paradoxically have residents who have more heat exposure, lower access to health care, and more socioeconomic vulnerability. In 2021, extreme heat directly caused 245 Clark County deaths, but in addition to death, heat exposure is associated with increased heart events, asthma exacerbation, perinatal effects, depression and concentration difficulty, and reduced worker productivity. Urban trees can reduce ground level temperatures by up to 10 degrees. Increased tree canopy has been shown to reduce heat stroke and heat-related mortality. A modeling study of 3 U.S. cities, including Phoenix, Arizona, shows that increasing tree cover could avoid 40 to 90% of the expected mortality increase due to climate-related increased heat. Another study showed that increased tree cover was related to decreased ambulance calls during heat events. In addition to directly reducing heat deaths and heat health impacts, the cooling effects of trees can reduce the catastrophic deaths due to an unanticipated power outage or emergency. Trees filter small amounts of particulate air pollution, which is associated with many serious harmful health effects. Living in an area with more tree cover has been found to correlate with a lower incidence of lung cancer and asthma hospitalizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andrew Sierra, Andrew Sierra, and I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League. By 2050, the typical number of heat wave days in Nevada is projected to increase from 15 to nearly 55 days a year, which would intensify the urban island heat effect that can be found in communities such as East and North Las Vegas. Las Vegas ranked #1 for the biggest difference between urban and rural temperatures, with urban areas being an average of 7.3 degrees hotter. However, researchers have concluded that we can minimize the urban island heat effect by simply planting more trees. Not only would urban forestry mitigate the urban island heat effect, but it would also beautify neighborhoods and plant desert-resilient trees that are less water-intensive. Additionally, trees serve as a natural air purifier, helping reduce particulate pollution that leads to health ailments such as asthma. We'd like to thank Assemblywoman Cohen for bringing this bill forward, and we urge the committee's support. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Nick Christensen. I'm a volunteer member of the Sierra Club, and on behalf of the club and our more than 30,000 members and supporters statewide, I'm speaking today in support of AB 131. Community forestry provides innumerable benefits, and I won't rehash all of the ones and the reasons that people have given for why that's the case, but I wish to add some information specifically about how trees reduce pollution levels in our community. The more we learn about the effects of air pollution, the more we understand just how harmful and insidious it is. Trees are one of the most effective ways to mitigate outdoor air pollution. Our children are one of the communities most impacted by air pollution. This is because of their higher respiratory rates, still developing bodies, and just the fact that they live closer to the ground, where heavier pollution particles tend to concentrate and lead to kids' increased susceptibility to the air pollution. Being around trees can improve the health of our kids. We recognize that conserving water is a vital concern in our state, and trees do require water. This is precisely why creating a new division within the state's existing Division of Forestry that is staffed with professionals who understand what sort of vegetation is appropriate for each community, as this bill does, is the right way to proceed. We believe that there is a balance to be had between tree populations and water consumption, and the proper balance in most of the state is to support more trees selected for each particular biome. The Sierra Club strongly supports AB 131 as it will help mitigate the effects of pollution and climate change in our state and thus improve the quality of life for our residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Why don't we come on back up here, and Carson?
Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Samuel Cano. I'm a constituent of District 4. I'm a member leader of Make the Road Nevada, and I'm also part of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. I am here to support the bill AB 131. When I step out of my house, I have the privilege to have a park in my community named Lorenzi Park. However, I understand that a lot of people are not offered that same opportunity. My vision for all Nevada is no matter your zip code or where you come from, you should have the same access to green spaces. Together we can improve our air quality and take a bold step to climate action. Today is Nevada's first official Environmental Justice Lobby Day, and soon I am going to return back to Las Vegas, Nevada. After I leave, I hope that the Nevada Legislature keeps the same energy and fights for the environmental justice along with the green spaces. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marina Baena y vengo de Las Vegas, Nevada, y soy con Make It Road como líder y miembro. Y NEGC, estoy en apoyo de AB 71 y AB 131. En donde yo vivo hay mucho concreto y no hay suficientes plantas. Árboles adicionalmente en las paradas de bus, y en mi área no hay árboles para vivir más feliz, sabiendo que nuestra comunidad más recursos como espacios verdes. Me gustaría que apoyen AB 71 y AB 131 y tomen el tema de la justicia ambiental más seriamente. Muchas gracias.
Hello, my name is Robert Garcia. I will be translating what Mariana Bajan said. Good afternoon. My name is Marina Bajan. I am a member of Make the Road Nevada and part of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. I am in support of AB 71 and AB 131. Where I live, there's a lot of concrete and not enough plants or trees. Additionally, at the bus stops, there are no trees or benches for sitting. Passing AB 131 will have the opportunity to live happier, knowing my community has natural resources like green spaces available. I urge the committee to move forward with AB 71 and AB 131. Thank you.
Thank you for the translation, and I believe the next individual as well. Thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Elizabeth Ortiz. Soy miembro de Make the Road Nevada y NEJC. Estoy dando apoyo al Bill AB 131 porque en mi comunidad tristemente se están acabando y deteriorando las áreas verdes, los árboles en las calles, esos parques hermosos que antes había con áreas verdes para caminar y para jugar. El medio ambiente en mi comunidad es más caliente, árido y triste. Llevo a mis hijos a los parques de Henderson, Nevada, porque les encanta ver áreas verdes y sentir esas brisas que los árboles nos brindan. Gracias por escuchar mi testimonio.
Hello again, my name is Robert Garcia. I'll be translating for Elizabeth Ortiz. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Ortiz. I am a member leader of Make the Road Nevada and NEJC. I'm giving support to the bill AB 131. Unfortunately, the green spaces in my community in East Las Vegas are deteriorating and disappearing. The trees along the streets and the beautiful parks with trails are also disappearing. The environment in my community is hotter, drier, and sadder. I take my kids to the park in Henderson, Nevada, because they love to see the green spaces and feel the breeze the trees provide with us. Thank you for listening to my testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the translation again. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Esli Amaya, EZTLIAMAYA. I am the Environmental Justice Organizer with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada and the co-founder of Fifth Sun Project, here in support of Assembly Bill 131. As a community member spending half of my life in East Las Vegas, I've had a firsthand experience living in an urban community that lacks access to nutritious foods, safe transportation structures, and heat protection. Underdeveloped and underserved communities have had to endure heat and pollution-related illnesses due to extreme climates, racial and economic inequalities. In the urban heat island, equity must play a role and remediate environmental effects where there's public transportation, where people live, work, and go to school. Urban forests slow climate change, mitigate air pollution, and lean our air by holding particles and sequestering CO2. The EPA estimates that every year, American trees remove about 800 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. That's enough to offset 12% of our climate pollution from burning fossil fuels. Planting more trees is sustainable location builds healthy forest solutions and is possible in urban areas. Urban forests are a great climate solution that delivers environmental, economic, social, and health services. Plan and Fifth Sun Project support this bill because of the goal in reducing the urban heat island, food deserts, hot playgrounds, hot streets, and its effects that fall disproportionately on people of color in low-income areas. We encourage the members of this committee to stand with underserved communities and support Assembly Bill 131. Thank you.
Thank you, and just so you all know about the time, we have about 10 minutes left of this time frame, and then there are some people that are also on the phone that wanted to speak. But if you would like to continue in Carson City.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jazel Uzuna, Jaazielozuna. I am here in support of AB 131. I live in Sparks, District 31, but I grew up in Las Vegas. I'm sure we all are familiar about how unbearable the summers can be there. 2 summers ago, as I was getting onto the 95 freeway in East Charleston, I witnessed a houseless man who sought shade under a tree by the freeway wall. A police car was driving on gravel to tell him to move. This was on the east side, which I won't ditto what everyone just did, where you don't see a lot of greeneries. It's a food desert that affects mostly people of color, where folks don't have access to fresh produce like they do in Summerlin, where can people who are unhoused or walking to the bus in the height of the summer find relief. People are dying in our state because of the heat. Houseless people are living in underground tunnels meant for flash floods to escape that heat. When it rains, they have no way of getting out. Just like we need to find a solution for houseless people during winter in Reno, I am urging you to take action in supporting this bill to invest in these underserved communities to make every corner of Nevada, from Vegas to Winnemucca, a place where people can find refuge in the shade. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Aaron Harris, and I live in AD 22, which is in Henderson. And I'm here to testify in strong support of Assembly Bill 131 in order to ensure that that everyone has the same quality of life that I got to have growing up. Growing up, trees were an essential component of our day-to-day life. They were used as a safe place in games of tag. We climbed the trees for fun, we built tree houses, and they really are essential to a child's mental health development. And every dollar that we spend in trees is a dollar that we're putting towards educational outcomes. So it's not just about the health effects, but we're also going to see educational improvements and health improvements. National Institute of Health released a study that said that children that live within a quarter mile of a park have lower rates of childhood obesity. And I can tell you, even in Henderson, where I live, very few homes live within a quarter mile of a park. So having trees, not just in these specific places, but throughout our neighborhoods, are critical to ensuring that we have proper biodiversity, proper health outcomes, and ensuring that kids can continue to play outside in the street as they like to do, not just in the winter, but in the summer as well. Yeah, that ends my testimony. Thank you.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, Chairwoman and the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Angel Lascano, ANGELLAZCANO. I'm the environmental justice organizer for Somos Votantes. Somos is a Latino-led, Latino-focused organization dedicated to empowering the next generation of Latinos by ensuring our community has the tools and information they need to fully participate in our democracy. First of all, I would like to thank you to the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of AB 131. Creating an urban and community forestry program will help tackle one of the biggest problems affecting working families across Nevada, our rising heat. Latinos are in the heart of the issue as our communities are more often than not located in urban heat islands such as Sunrise Manor. More trees not only stand as a solution to the heat problem, but come with a myriad of health benefits for hardworking families, as you guys heard today. By passing this piece of legislation, we tackle the issue by providing some means to better identify areas in need of tree canopies, maintain them, and improve them. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I hope you take our support into consideration. Let's create greener, healthy communities for hardworking families in Nevada.
Assembly Chair and members in attendance. I'm James Katzen, K-A-T-Z-E-N, and I'm a member of the Sierra Club and a lot of other environmental organizations, which I won't go into right now. I'm in concurrence with a lot of the positive statements that have been said about carbon capture by trees and other things, so I won't go into all that. I do want to point out that we have a long history of environmental protection in this country. The most prominent parts would begin with Theodore Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt, who the war overshadowing most of his remembrance started out in 1933 when he became president, and in his specially built Ford, he drove thousands of miles to examine territory all the way from Washington to California, or from the East Coast to California coast, and create a lot of the parks and preserves that we have today. And so I just want to point out that we need to carry on that tradition, and it was done in a lot of ways because it was healthy, but the CCC, the WPA, and other organizations were created not only to mitigate
Sir, you're going to want to start
depression.
wrapping it up pretty soon.
Excuse me?
You're going to need to start wrapping it up
Yeah,
pretty soon.
I am right now. And so the organizations put people to work creating these beautification areas, and Eleanor Roosevelt, I believe, was the woman who did the beautification of Washington and Pennsylvania Avenue and the reclamation of the Potomac. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move on into, we only have about 2 minutes, so it sounds like we can only have one caller. So if you have called in, I guess, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I can't remember what to say for that. So, it's on the agenda, right? So if there's anybody that would like to speak in favor, you could please take that over on the phone lines.
To provide support testimony for AB 131, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. And we, as disabled people, love happy bills. And we certainly hope that you all will have this will tickle you happy and you guys will pass it. When during the COVID at its peak, people with disability were unable to travel independently due to lack of transportation. We were going outside and trying to find shade. I live in the Assembly District 27, and as you may know or not, as a person who is blind and not legally cannot drive, we take a lot of buses, and there are hardly any trees, so we have to mind our service dogs and ourselves. So I certainly hope you all pass this bill, and many thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Chair, there are no more callers wishing to
Oh.
provide testimony.
And she's already gone. Okay, we were unable to figure out her name. Wonderful. Do we have it? Okay. Good deal, Dora Martinez. So now we will move on into opposition, 30 minutes of opposition. So if you would like to, anyone in opposition in Carson City, come on up to the table. Seeing no one making a move. There's anyone in opposition in Clark County, unless they're hiding behind the podium, that pole, I don't see anybody there as well. Or if there's anybody on BPS for opposition.
To testify in opposition of AB 131, please press *9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify.
Thank you so much. We'll now move into neutral. If there's anybody that would like to testify in neutral on this bill in Carson City, come on up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Casey for the record again, State Forester Fire Warden, here to testify in neutral on AB 131. This particular bill will codify the urban and community forestry program for the division for all the reasons you heard about earlier, so I'm not going to go into all the notes I wrote. But one of the big aspects of this is coordinating multiple partners and stakeholders, so municipalities, academic institutions, nonprofit industry, making sure that everybody knows the best available science, that it's out there, and that we're implementing across our developed and our urban areas the same. So the roles that trees play are critically important, obviously, to our ecosystems and to our communities. This is a very important program to us as a division. One of the reasons this is different than the current program, I will say, is we are funded by the federal government through state and private forestry program from the U.S. Forest Service funding. There are restrictions on that funding. We are, historically, urban and community forestry has taken a big hit in federal funding because of the wildfire crisis. So as we started to see the wildfire crisis peak, our urban and community forestry budget dropped significantly. We have managed the program with one full-time coordinator, currently housed in Las Vegas, historically housed up here, and one part-time urban and community forester up in Elko. We are going to expand to 3 full-time, 1 per region employees, and this would allow us to bring a different Nevada flair beyond what the federal guidelines and rules and regulations are. One of the most important things is consistent messaging, as I said, using the best available science, making sure that we are educating tree care workers, people planting trees, people taking care of trees, both in English and in Spanish primarily, but we also do translate to other languages as well. So it's very, very important that we're helping to find that education. Unfortunately, it is not as easy as just saying we plant trees and they grow. Trees require a lot of work. They need to be pruned, they need to be loved, they don't always need to be hugged, but it helps. There's a lot of things that need to happen, so we need to ensure that everybody in the industry is making sure that those trees are properly taken care of, and that's the job of the Division of Forestry, is coordinating those efforts across jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for answering those questions from earlier. Anyone else wishing to testify in neutral here in Carson, in Clark, or BPS?
To testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 131, please press star 9 now or raise hand in your Zoom window to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify.
Thank you so much. Would you like to make any closing remarks? Okay, then I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 131. Thank you so much. I believe the chair will be taking the gavel back over.
Going to open the hearing on Assembly Bill 71, which requires the Division of Environmental Protection of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to conduct an interim study concerning environmental justice. When you're ready, please go ahead, Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I am Howard Watts. I have the pleasure of representing Assembly District 15. Right in the middle of Clark County, and it's my pleasure today to present Assembly Bill 71 for your consideration. AB 71 was recommended by the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources with bipartisan support. I was the chair of that committee during the interim. And really what the bill aims to address is kind of a gap that we've seen in looking at environmental impacts, particularly within the state. It seeks to look at environmental justice, and as I walk through the bill, it's important to note that we've got a strong foundation of environmental evaluation and regulation. We have public health regulation and processes, and we've also analyzed some of the impacts that different communities faced and have tried to map some of those things, but ultimately a lot of them are fairly siloed. And really what AB 71 looks to do is to take a more holistic and comprehensive look at some of these issues and how they stack together and amplify one another. And then based on that and based on engagement with the community, to come back with some ideas that this body, the executive, or others could consider to help address some of the disparate impacts that certain communities have seen. To put a little bit of a finer point on it, actually, first I'll walk you through the bill so that everyone's clear on that, and then give some examples on why I think that this is necessary. So quickly going through the bill, Section 2 defines cumulative environmental burdens. This is really important because it's defining how, again, some of these different impacts related to the environment stack up for different communities. Section 4 provides some examples of what environmental burdens could include. Section 5 creates a definition of environmental justice in statute, basically for kind of the fair and equitable treatment of different communities. Section 7 includes an existing definition of historically underserved communities. Section 8 defines meaningful involvement for communities throughout this process, the study process. And Section 9 really is the heart of the bill. It would direct the Division of Environmental Protection to conduct a study on environmental justice issues. They would have to identify communities that face the greatest cumulative impacts, come up with methods to prevent an increase in those cumulative impacts, and strategies to decrease any existing cumulative impacts. It would prioritize historically underserved communities, and crucially, it would allow the division to contract with a private entity to conduct the study, and then also designates who should be involved in that process, which is also the subject of a conceptual amendment that you all should have. And while I'm presenting the bill, I'll just go through that briefly. Really what we're doing is breaking that out into its own section, requiring collaboration and coordination with different agencies, affected communities, the public as a whole, and other stakeholders, and specifically calling out agencies involved in air quality, environmental protection, public health, natural resources and transportation, research institutions, representatives from environmental organizations, representatives from the business community, and representatives from community organizations, including indigent or low-income populations and other underserved communities. One thing that I did omit but would like to add to that is the engagement of tribal governments in this process as well. And so how all of the policy works in practice, we just heard, for example, about tree canopy and the disparities that we see in that. Also related to that, we heard about the urban heat island effect. There's also been some work to look at air pollution, and that's growing. Our Division of Environmental Protection already knows its permitted entities for air or water pollution discharges. But they look at each of those projects essentially on a fence line basis and look at it within the limits of what's acceptable within the existing regulatory framework for that facility to release. But if you think about having a grouping of those facilities all in one community, and then perhaps a highway running next to those that has a lot of automobile traffic that's emitting additional pollution, it's trying to look at how do those different things that are often looked at on kind of an individual basis, how do those all come together to add up to the impacts that a community faces. Another issue is looking at the public health side of things. And so what are some of the health conditions that we know are more prevalent in certain communities? For example, asthma, and how is the prevalence of air pollution potentially making that worse, or making the impacts, hospitalization, et cetera, worse for those communities. Another issue, heat factors into all of that as well. So heat is actually a factor in the development of ozone pollution. So that's, again, something that interacts along with air pollution and health impacts. The EPA has created certain kind of environmental justice mapping tools, but again, we don't have anything that is truly specific to the state and that tries to gather all of this different data. And the other piece that I didn't mention before is economics, areas where folks are struggling to pay their utility bills. The impacts of heat on those communities are going to be different than elsewhere. Also their access to use, for example, HVAC technology to filter the air indoors. So really what Assembly Bill 71 looks to do is step back and look at these issues at a higher level. I would envision the division contracting with an agency to help look at these different issues, to hear from the community and all the different stakeholders, and then produce a report that can help inform future action by the state in addressing them. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions that members of the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Assemblymember. I have 2 questions from Assemblymember Brown-May.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation and for the really good work throughout the interim on this bill. I do have just 2 questions, and I think I heard you talk a little bit to it right at the very end. Under Section 4, when you talk about environmental burden, right, meaning any significant impact, number 2 delineates air and water pollution. And I'm just curious to know, is there any conversation relative to indoor air and water pollution as opposed to outdoor, and how does that interplay?
Thank you. Howard Watts for the record. That's an excellent question. Indoor air pollution is a really quickly emerging area of interest. We've done a lot of work on regulating and trying to address outdoor air pollution, especially when it's related to industrial releases. There's a growing body of research that shows that combustion of fossil fuels indoors, for example, can create extremely high levels of indoor air pollution. Cooking in general can actually create very high levels of indoor air pollution, at least temporarily, if you don't have access to the appropriate ventilation. So this does not specify indoor or outdoor. I think there's a significant amount of data available on outdoor pollution, but would hope that at least the consideration of indoor air pollution would be one of the topics for consideration as part of the study.
Thank you for that. And I just have one additional question. You may have addressed it in your proposed amendment. Under Section 8, meaningful involvement, and what does it mean? Number 3 states the agency seeks out and facilitates the involvement of persons potentially affected. How? Was there any methodology that was discussed in the creation of that?
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. This is the difficult thing because one of the critical things here is that in some of these communities, and they could be urban communities, they could be rural communities, they could be tribal communities. Oftentimes, folks that feel like they are dealing with all of these things stacking on top of each other feel like they've been left out of the process. And it's a struggle that we have. In general, when we're taking different actions, we try and publicly post things and put them out there, but that doesn't always guarantee that someone's going to be aware of it and be able to participate in the process. And so we are trying to really encourage folks to be thoughtful and deliberate in finding new ways to reach out. It's not extremely prescriptive on what that would be, but this is an attempt without getting down into the nitty-gritty of saying that somebody has to go knock on everyone's door or send everyone a piece of mail, to say that just saying, hey, we're doing this, and then no one commented, so we're going to move forward, isn't enough. People need to be very intentional about, if we're not hearing from this community, then that's a problem that we have to find a way to address this in order to do this work.
I have a question from Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this. I agree that we need to look at this holistically and look at these burdens that are being placed on a whole community holistically. My question has to do with the report and what they're doing with all of this, because I think the last thing that we want is another study that goes onto the shelf and then goes nowhere, right? I think that if we're going to look at this, we need to then have action to improve the things that we discover. And so I wondered if you could just speak to the action portion of this.
Thank you, Howard Watts, for the record. I'd be glad to. There are several other states that have brought forward policy on environmental justice, and several of those have actually, as their action portion, have sought to do some of this mapping to define some of these communities, and then to put additional restrictions on, for example, air or water discharge permits in those communities. the reason that I didn't choose to go that route is because, again, we actually haven't undertaken this work, and I don't want to use income data, racial or ethnicity data as a stand-in for truly trying to dig into what some of these impacts are and how some of those particularly stack and impact the health and well-being of certain communities. You know, so I felt that the better approach was to start by better understanding what the issue is and in how that might vary from different communities in our state. And then to, as part of this process, as you're engaging to understand that, also draw on some ideas for how we can address that. You know, in some areas, you know, maybe changes in transportation, in transit, and you know, deploying trees. Maybe that's something that helps address heat and air pollution. But in another community, the solutions might look different, and so instead of taking a shot in the dark at what the solution is going to be, the idea is let's better understand the issues that different communities face and how certain interventions might have a bigger impact in some than others. Get those recommendations back, and then again, some of those might be action by local government. Some of them might be action by the legislature. Some of them could be action by executive branch agencies. So that's really what the thinking is around this. But I did want to make sure that there are recommendations for action to be considered coming out of this, that it's not just understanding the program, but that there is a component of looking at ways that we do something about it.
Assemblymember DeLong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have already answered some of my question from your, the response you just did, but in our more urban areas of the state, we have a pretty robust land use planning process at the local level. And then in the rural part of the state, most of it's controlled by the federal government, either the Forest Service or the BLM. And then if they're permitting any projects, they go through a rather extensive environmental review process under NEPA. How are you seeing the division incorporating those programs and systems into their report?
Thank you for that question. Howard Watts for the record. And again, that's one of the reasons why this bill doesn't look to necessarily modify any of the existing permitting process that are in place. NEPA is fairly robust. And so this isn't proposing to create a state-level NEPA. This isn't isn't proposing to modify the existing permitting processes and authority that, for example, the Division of Environmental Protection has. But again, a lot of times, NEPA a little bit more will look a little bit more broadly, and often in scoping and in some of the engagement that happens in that process, there are stakeholders that will try and encourage the agency to look at broader impacts that could be associated with the project. But at the end of the day, that approach is very project by project specific. And so the goal of this is to say, okay, let's look beyond what the impact of any single project or facility is and look at the community level at what some of their vulnerabilities might be and what, where might they have a combination of exposure to heat, air quality discharge happening nearby, non-point source pollution in the waterway, and how might those things be adding up to create an impaired quality of life.
And do you want to tell us what NEPA is?
Oh, thank you. Howard Watts for the record. I got caught in the jargon jam. The National Environmental Policy Act. That's how environmental review for projects is done at the federal level.
Thank you. Assemblymember Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello. I have a question on section 4, subsection 12, limited access. This is under environmental burdens, meaning any significant impact, and then on and on. Number 12 was limited access to health care and higher rates of complicating health conditions. I'm trying to understand, I represent a lot of the rural districts, and there already is a problem with health care and access to health care. I'm trying to understand how a project, commercial operation, a policy would impact. I'm just curious why that's in there with the other list that you have.
Thank you. Howard Watts for the record. I appreciate that question, Assemblywoman. So the reason why it's included, I alluded to it a little bit earlier. So again, if, for example, if there are issues identified with air pollution, the goal of this is to also understand, are there higher rates of lung disease that, again, may be linked? Like, is the pollution a cause? Or does that make folks more susceptible to any impacts from air pollution? Another could be extreme heat that has impacts on all kinds of different bodily systems, but then if you're dealing with other cardiovascular conditions or other conditions, you could be even more susceptible to impacts from that. So that's the goal, is to bring in to combine a public health perspective into some of the environmental factors. And just to be clear, again, this is really the data gathering phase, and so it's not to require that a project look at this issue or a proposed development. This is about trying to work with a contractor to do kind of a scan of the state and see where some of these different items that have been listed are stacking up and potentially really negatively impacting the quality of life of a community.
Can I follow up real quick? Thank you, Chair. And as I look at the bill, on the macro level, a lot of this just makes sense, and it's in the sense that, yes, we all want clean air, we want clean water, we want good conditions. It's on the micro level that I think some of these things are taken care of already through, environmental protection, things that are in place. It leaves me wondering how this even looks. I know it's a study, but then the study becomes what? Does it become a mandate that the study said this, so then we mandate these micro things into existence, some of which are already being done, but just help me understand what goes on after that, after a study.
Thank you very much. Howard Watts for the record. So again, part of this is to bring recommendations to the extent that those recommendations go before any decision-making body, whether it's a local government, the state legislature, an executive branch agency. It'll be up for them to decide what they do or do not want to move forward with. We can't bind any future government action. The goal really of this is to inform and to provide ideas for consideration. Again, at the end of the day, it's not saying to change any existing permitting process, but it is recognizing that we often do look at a lot of these things in silos. So we look at heat, we look at air pollution, we look at things on a project by project basis, and aren't necessarily looking at it at a bigger scale. And I think that is a worthwhile exercise. This definition of cumulative environmental burdens, again, when we're just looking at things one piece at a time, and at no point are looking at what's the impact on an entire neighborhood of decisions made over a period of years and many projects, I think it's a little bit of a blind spot for us.
So I guess I have more of a comment than a question. In my notes from reading the bill, before I saw the conceptual amendment, in section 9, in the section about the study, well, obviously it's all about study, but I do have notes to myself about, should there be a sociologist, an economist, certain types of scientists? And so I really appreciate when I saw the conceptual amendment that you listed the research institutions besides the representative from the environmental organization, the business community, et cetera. And I would just ask that maybe that there be something more specific, that we do look at considering a sociologist or economist or someone else that, specifically knows how to, you mentioned at the beginning, gathering data and getting people to come out of their homes to answer questions and to participate in a study, that type of thing. And that if we're able to bring those people on board so that this is a real detailed study that's assigned, that's data driven and has the real information that will help us as we proceed with this data that we hope we can obtain from this.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Howard Watts for the record. Absolutely. Also, the contractor that is chosen for the study could also really play a significant role in that outreach. I guess the one thing that also addresses Assemblywoman Hansen's question a bit, I believe that the division will come up and provide some testimony, I believe, in the neutral position. They've looked at some other areas that have tried to conduct some similar studies, and they might be able to provide some additional clarity about kind of what's involved in that, how that differs from some of the things that they currently do. But no, I do agree that we need to make sure that we're really thinking about the sociological aspects and doing the outreach.
Okay, not seeing any more questions. We're going to move on to support. We're going to have half an hour for support, half an hour for opposition, half an hour in neutral. There will be 2 minutes per testimony for each person, with a little bit extra more time for someone if there's going to be an interpreter, and we'll be timing. So please go ahead and fill in the table. If there's anyone in Elko or Las Vegas, fill in the table. And just go ahead and state your name and go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick Donnelly, Center for Biological Diversity. Really thrilled to be a part of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition on the first Environmental Justice Lobby Day. I won't take up your time because you want to hear from community members. So we're really thrilled to support AB 71 and thank Assemblyman Watts for his leadership on this issue.
Thank you, Assembly members and fellow residents of Nevada. Thank you for being the protectors and the guardians of this state. My name is Juan Lizarrega. I'm a fellow resident as well of Nevada. I'm a worker, I'm a father. And now that I'm a father, I'm in charge of my daughter, 8 years old, and I give her a lesson. It's always to learn from her mistakes. This is a bittersweet memory for me because when I was 8, I get to hear this lesson from my grandpa as he gasped for air, as he choked in every sentence for pulmonary-related illnesses that they developed and they were produced due to the environmental toxicity of mine work-related environment explosions that they were in his area. These destroyed his quality of life and put him to bed and then put him in the ground way before he could even meet his granddaughter. And now the only thing I can do here is look up to you again as guardians and protectors of Nevada. Please, keep supporting the protection of this beautiful state by supporting this law, the AB 71. This actually is a study that will help identify which communities in the state face the greatest environmental burdens, such as the communities around Packer Pass. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead next. And please make sure and turn off the button when you're done testifying. Please go ahead.
Hello to the committee. My name is Lakin Kelly, Kelley, and I'm a constituent of Assembly District 15 in downtown Las Vegas. I'm here to support AB 71. I just want to briefly speak from my experience why I'm in strong favor of this bill. I grew up in Las Vegas, so from kindergarten to my bachelor's in environmental science, and now earning my master's in communication, I've spent nearly 25 years in Las Vegas. I also was recently diagnosed with an autoimmune thyroid disease at 25 years old with no known cause. We all know about drought and heat issues in southern Nevada, but what I didn't realize until, unfortunately, recently is the disproportionate heat, air pollution, and other exposures near my home in downtown, where I live and my sister owns a home. I think a lack of studies has led to this gap in awareness, and certain members of the community, such as myself and those in East Las Vegas, are facing a relatively unknown extent of health impacts because of it. It's incredibly important that we get more comprehensive data about these disproportionate effects. I've studied these issues in my education at UNLV, and I can confidently say that this study will offer important data to intelligently plan for the future of my neighborhood, and could be beneficial to future academic studies as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Marta Moreno. Soy miembro de Make the Road Nevada y también soy de NEJC. Estoy aquí porque creo en el Bill AB 71. Yo vivo pegada al freeway del San Hill A-Twain. Está cerca de la escuela Chaparral. Me preocupan mucho nuestros jóvenes porque a las horas tope de a las horas topes de los carros en el freeway, es en la mañana muy temprano, de las 7 a 9, y en la tarde es como de 1 a 5. El smog es mucho, y nosotros nos preocupamos por nuestros estudiantes. La escuela Chaparral está pegada al freeway, y eso nos preocupa mucho. En nuestra área lamentablemente, las gentes que vivían antes ahí hicieron contrato con el Distrito de Salud y quitaron zacate por piedra. Y no hay árboles, necesitamos de su apoyo, por favor. Piensen en nuestros jóvenes que vienen atrás de nosotros. Gracias, muy amables por oírme.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Garcia. I'll be translating for Marta Moreno. She said, hello, my name is Marta Moreno. I am a member of Make the Road Nevada, a member leader, and part of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. I am here in support of AB 71. I support this bill because I live near a freeway, Sun Hill and Twain, and the pollution from vehicle smog increases during peak time of day. I am worried for the safetyness of our children and for our neighborhoods in general, since trees have been replaced with rocks in my area. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for interpreting for us, Mr. Garcia. Please go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Kyle Roerink. I am Executive Director of the Great Basin Water Network, and we represent urban and rural constituencies around the state regarding groundwater issues, and I think Section 4's in the bill, I think it's really important that we take the time to consider what the groundwater impacts are going to be across the state in the future. So again, we support AB 71. We thank you all for your time, and we thank Assemblyman Watts for his work.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is John Hatter. I'm the Executive Director of Great Basin Resource Watch, and we also thank Howard Watts, for bringing forward this bill. Great Basin Resource Watch works with many communities that are disproportionately affected by projects in the Great Basin, particularly mining operations, which is our focus. But we are glad to see this legislation to begin to understand and provide recommendations to improve government operations decision-making in addressing environmental justice. Key, obviously, is communities disproportionately affected. That's what we want to try to get at. Who is continuously affected by some of the projects and operations in Nevada, in what way, and understanding that. So again, we support this bill, and thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Peter Gower from the Nature Conservancy. I'm the Strategy Director for Energy, Infrastructure, and Land Use. Nature Conservancy supports AB 71 as a global organization committed to conserving the lands and waters on which all life depends. We believe that to be effective in helping the environment, we must implement solutions that are inclusive, just, and equitable. We're glad to see the bill consider the environmental burdens of climate and energy in particular. We think it's important to consider the impact that increased development of energy infrastructure has on Nevada's cities, tribes, and rural communities. In addition to transmission lines, renewable energy development, we're likely to see more infrastructure built to support critical mineral supply and manufacturing. These industries have a natural resource input, output, and supply chain considerations that should be considered, and associated environmental justice burdens as we build out that infrastructure. Also wanted to say, too, that we appreciate the other topics listed as environmental burdens, notably reduction in groundwater levels. Nevada is the driest state, as you know, in the nation, and we're fortunate to have many groundwater aquifers that provide a buffer for droughts and climate change, as well as groundwater-dependent ecosystems that support many of the over 300 endemic species found only in Nevada. However, almost half of Nevada's groundwater basins have more water committed than are available, and 20% are overpumped, which threatens water availability for people and nature. Thank you for hearing our testimony.
Hello, my name is Winona Fareed, WINONAFREED. I'm with Fridays for Future Las Vegas, and I came here with my 9-year-old daughter, but she's about bored at this point, so she didn't want to participate in this. So I'm going to speak her part and my part. Over a year and a half ago, she knew something was really wrong with the environment that made her scared. She didn't know the science about how it worked, but she knew it was hurting people and her childhood. So myself and I and my daughter watched I Am Greta, and she was devastated to learn about climate change. After watching, we were inspired to turn our climate anxiety into climate action and start Fridays for Future Las Vegas and Fridays for Future US Kids. But she shouldn't be here. She should be at school today, but instead, she's here lobbying for her future because after finding out the truth, how can she not? Summers are getting hotter and for longer. According to Scientific American, as record-breaking heat happens more often, the number of heat-related illnesses go up. Every year, more than 9,000 high school athletes are treated for heat-related illness. A nationwide study found that from May to September, days with higher temps have more visits to children's hospitals rooms. When it's unbearable, it's really hard for kids. She hates being stuck inside. She wants to get fresh air and run around, but she feels like she's getting cabin fever all year, summer long, and waiting for it to get cool. Now, it's obvious that climate change affects kids' mental health, and it's not hard to see how through-going scary events will make it hard for her to have to bunker down from tornadoes or hurricanes or have to flee from their homes for wildfires. It creates fear and anxiety. And also with the air pollution, it's bad because when we walk home from school, it's so thick that she can hear crunching in her teeth because of the air pollution is so thick. She has to wear a mask home to school because of that. She can't go outside to go play. She has to stay inside. Las Vegas has 11th place for the most polluted city for ozone pollution in the nation. And while it is tough for her to have to deal with being inside, it's more than that. MAPA, which is a Fridays for Future term, is most affected people in areas. This will affect everyone. This whole bill, AB 71, identifies who is MAPA. We don't entirely know everything about who is MAPA. We don't have enough studies.
We're at 2 minutes. If you could please wrap it up.
Children are getting hurt from this. We need to be able to help them. They're neurologically getting hurt. They should have a fight for their future, and we need to figure out what needs to be in place. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Teresa Melendez, Teresa Teresa, Melendez Melendez, and I'm with Silver State Government Relations and here on behalf of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. So I'm here to give testimony on behalf of AB 71. And first thing I would like to say is I'd like to acknowledge this committee and the activists in the room. It's rare to sit in front of a government body and to be recognized as tribal nations, and to hear tribes consistently recognized in this space, in this room, has been really uplifting, and I appreciate that. And I think it's because of a common bond that people in this room, the tribal nations, share. So when people think of natives, they often like kind of romanticize about this connection to the earth, but the reality is that the indigenous people of this land, the Paiute, the Shoshone, and the Washoe people, have always been here, that their bones and their blood are in this dirt and in these mountains. And we talk about our ceremonies like the power comes from the mountains and from the stars and from these lands and these lakes and these rivers. Like everything about these people are connected to this land. And so I think that the people who love the environment really recognize that relationship that the tribes have with this place. And I'm indigenous also, but from Michigan. And so like these are not my homelands. My homelands come from Michigan and from Poland. And all of us are indigenous to somewhere. And I think that our blood memory, like our DNA, resonates and loves that place where our ancestors come from. And so today I'm speaking on behalf of support of this bill for one of the tribes that we represent, the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe, knowing that the Nevada tribes disproportionately are experience environmental hazards unlike other communities. I'm really excited to see an environmental study that will prove that. Oftentimes we're told that our numbers are insignificant, that this tribe is too small, or
And I'm sorry, we're at 2 minutes, if you could please
I'll wrap it up. So in essence, we need this data to be able to prove to the state of Nevada and to the federal government the environmental harm that's being caused by industry around our tribal communities. With that, Miigwech, thank you for your time.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee. My name is Olivia Tanager. That's Tanager. I'm the Environmental Justice Program Manager with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. You might know it as PLAN, which is a member group of the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition, and I'm here to testify in support of AB 71. And the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada was founded in 1994 by Nevada activists to build a more fair and just Nevada that puts people and planet first. We recognize that there are still serious roadblocks to achieving that Nevada, and the first step to dismantling them is knowing what to dismantle and how to dismantle it. Communities across Nevada experience environmental issues differently, and a study as to how those issues impact different people is long overdue. From PLAN's history of working with directly impacted communities, we know Native communities experience disproportionate amounts of water pollution from mining. The east side of Las Vegas, which is a predominantly non-white community, is known to be sometimes as much as we heard today, 17 degrees warmer than white and wealthier areas. Farm workers, 75% of whom are members of the Latine community, have to work in increasingly harsh conditions through smoke and extreme heat. Areas of high pollution, like highways, tend to run through areas that are lower income. This study is a major step forward in achieving environmental justice in Nevada by identifying symptoms of environmental injustices and pointing towards solutions. I ask you, on behalf of environmental justice advocates in this room who are here for the first ever Environmental Justice Lobby Day, on behalf of PLAN, and on behalf of myself as a Nevadan, to support Assembly Bill 71. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson, Cabrera-Georgeson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League, here in support of AB 71. As we move to a cleaner, healthier state, we must make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. This bill will help us make more informed decisions in the future to make sure that we're doing just that. So we urge your support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cynthia Moore, CINTHIAMOORE, and I'm the Coalition Coordinator for the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition. We're here today for our very first Environmental Justice Day at the Legislature. The NEJC is a coalition of 14 Nevada-based organizations united in the fight for intersectional climate action and environmental justice. Through grassroots organizing and policy advocacy, the NEJC is working to prioritize justice in the fight to protect our state's natural resources through a social and racial equity lens, to ensure a just transition away from extractive industries and liberate frontline communities from environmental hardships. We are here in support of AB 71. In Nevada, not everyone experiences the same environmental issues. Communities such as East Las Vegas and the historical West Side tend to have higher rates of pollution. Many of our communities are built closer to freeways, and our areas are experiencing heavy traffic. If you were to look at a map on any given day of air quality in Las Vegas, you will see that communities that are in the core of the city, which also tend to be located in the urban heat island, the air quality index is much higher. I often use this app on my phone to determine whether or not my son, who's only 5 years old, will be able to play outside that day or not due to his respiratory issues that are exacerbated by poor air quality days. Now, that's not how I grew up when I was growing up in Las Vegas. That was not an issue. My son's only 5 years old, and already his childhood is looking a lot different than mine. Conducting an environmental study in our state is something that needs to be done in order to determine which communities are impacted the most by environmental issues, and for the state to come up with solutions and how we need to address these issues.
And we're at 2 minutes, if you can wrap up, please.
The environmental justice study would help communities like East Las Vegas and all other communities in our state to address these issues that we are all experiencing on a daily basis. I urge you to support AB 71.
Lisa Ortega, I'm testifying in favor of AB 71. I do think a study like this will help folks like me, boots on the ground, know how to be effective, find the best places to be effective as we look at the whole. Thank you very much, and ditto, ditto.
Thank you, and thank you to the gentleman waiting very patiently in Las Vegas. Please go ahead if you're in support.
Thank you, Chair Cohen and members of the committee. My name again is Nick Christensen, Nickchristenson for the record, and I am a volunteer member of the Sierra Club and speaking on behalf of our members and supporters in the state, and we are asking you to support AB 71. It's well known that low-income residents and people of color suffer the harmful effects of pollution more than any other group. My written testimony has this documented, but Assemblyman Watts has laid this out very well, so I'll refer you to the written testimony if you want to read that in detail. But it is past time for the state of Nevada to recognize that addressing these environmental injustices not only helps those in the communities that suffer most, but also takes a much needed step in figuring out the best ways to mitigate climate change. We should encourage this opportunity for all citizens of the state to be able to enjoy a clean environment as well as economic prosperity. AB 71 would be a positive first step in that direction, and for these reasons, we urge you to support AB 71. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we will go to the phones. BPS, if you'll please, I believe we have a couple people waiting to testify on the phones.
To testify in support of AB 71, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for the opportunity to speak this evening. Hamu Pisha Tubino Num Machina, meaning hello, my name is James Phoenix. I am the chairman of the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe in Northern Nevada. I am also a retired Reno police officer and lieutenant colonel in the Nevada Army National Guard. I support AB 71. Why? To bring awareness, documentation, and the recommendations of the Native American communities here in the Great Basin that suffer from the environmental burdens such as groundwater and surface water management and grid infrastructure power outages. Pyramid Lake is just one of the 28 tribes here in the Great Basin reservation communities that don't have the experts and the resource to study and reduce the environmental burdens. This is a great opportunity to study tribes and the impacts we suffer. By developing methods and strategies to prevent increases and to decrease cumulative environmental burdens on these Native American identified communities and submit the report of its findings and recommendations to the Director of Legislative Council is something all Native Americans communities will support. Therefore, please take the time and commitment to our Native American people here in the Great Basin so that it does not go unnoticed and become less of a priority. In closing, I want to thank all committee members, and I support AB 71 as proposed by Assemblyman Howard Watts. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, next person on the phones, please.
Caller,
Good
you're on.
evening, Chair. Hi, good evening, Chair and members of the committee. I am Maria Teresa Lieberman Barraga, MARIA-Teresa-Liebermann-Barraga. That's probably the longest part of the testimony because I want to say ditto to what all of the folks have said. Battleborn Progress and myself as an individual, having grown up in a community heavily Latino, where I grew up with pollution and lack of green spaces is why we support this bill, and hopefully we can make our state a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, do we have anyone else on? Go ahead.
Sorry, Chair.
No,
If
please.
you've recently joined the call and would like to testify in support of AB 71, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you are unmuted and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair. This is Stacy Montooth, a citizen of the Walker River Paiute Nation. I'm calling to thank Assemblyman Watts for his leadership and to record as a supporter of AB 71. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS, anyone else on the phones?
Chair, there are no more callers to testify.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else in support, we will move on to opposition. Anyone in opposition in Carson City, please start to fill in the chairs.
Ooh, thank you. Outline what, quote, environmental burden means. For example, Section 4 uses many subjective and undefined terms in a statement, quote, destruction or damage, impairment of natural resources resulting from intentionally or reasonably foreseeable causes, unquote. Eureka County current social economic structure is heavily reliant on mining. Mining, by its nature, intentionally removes valuable ore bodies, which some would define as destructive or damaged. Some could interpret mining as always being an environmental burden, even in cases where it is not. The current statement in Section 4 could be replaced with unnecessary or undue degradation to comport to the federal legal and regulatory standard. Another example in Section 4, Sub 6, reduction of groundwater levels. Any groundwater use whatsoever, including domestic wells, will reduce groundwater levels to some degree. This language should be consistent with reasonable lowering of the water table currently allowed in NRS 534. Eureka County has some suggestions for changes, and we make ourselves available to work with the sponsors and others to find the language we can get behind. We've also provided an amendment that I have sent to Assemblyman Watts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition in Carson City? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone in opposition in Las Vegas or Elko? Seeing none, we'll go to the phones. Please, BPS.
Chair, there are no callers to provide testimony.
Okay, then with that, let's go to neutral in Carson City. Anyone in neutral?
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Carr, C-A-R-R, Deputy Administrator for the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. It's nice to see you this afternoon. Estimating and assessing cumulative environmental burdens and impacts is a focus area for research by the U.S. EPA's Office of Research and Development, and is a fairly new area that we had to look into when we got the initial BDR for this effort. We did reach out to a few communities in the U.S. that are working in this area. Specifically, we did receive information back from the city of Chicago, as well as the state of Virginia. Frankly, there's not a lot of folks doing this yet. So we will look forward to seeing how this bill progresses. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might send my way, or I might have to come back with answers at a later time. But I am, really appreciative of hearing the testimony here today, because it is, revealing areas to me that I don't necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for the opportunity to hear what everyone has had to say today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello. Who would you see managing this project within NDEP? Specifically, which bureau, or would it be at the division's administrative level, or actually in the department?
Thank you, Assemblyman DeLong. Jennifer Carr for the record. That is a really good question. This effort would cross all of our media, air, land, and water. So it's probably too soon to tell, but we certainly would be handling it as contemplated by Assemblyman Watts with a contractor. We simply don't have the resources to conduct this at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else in neutral? Okay, anyone in neutral in Las Vegas or Elko? Seeing none. BPS, do we have anyone in neutral on the phones?
There are still no callers to provide testimony.
Okay, we have no closing statements. So with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 71, and we will go to public comment. As a reminder, public comment is not to rehear any of the bills that we've already heard today, and will be limited to 2 minutes. BPS, do we have anyone on the phones for public comment?
There are still no callers for public comment.
Thank you. Anything from anyone on the committee? Okay, then we will see you everyone on Wednesday. And with that, we are adjourned.